The cardboard box ripped open all of a sudden. The sound of frozen meat hitting the floor just drowned out the noise of the manager's door closing. So, that's how Mili ended up getting locked in the storage freezer at -18 degrees Celsius. She had no clue, not until the manager switched off all the store's lights. Mili felt the danger approaching. She jumped up and knocked on the big door. In a panic, she turned on the freezer lights, but her heart never felt the warmth again. The manager just kept taking calls and didn't seem to hear anything else going on. He walked out of the mall, still chatting on the phone. Mili was in a rush looking for her phone, but sadly, she had left it on the counter at the store. In the freezing cold storage, Mili felt really desperate. She was unsure of her next move, but she kept pushing forward. She grabbed a cart and slammed it into the door. She hit the door as hard as she could, but it just wouldn't budge. But her hands ended up bruised and torn. With the temperature continuing to drop, Mili rubbed her palms together repeatedly, trying to find even a little warmth. She accidentally brushed against a movie ticket in her pocket. She checked her watch. The final show was wrapping up. She picked up a tray, rushed to the door, and stared at her watch, not blinking at all. When the moment arrived, she banged the tray frantically against the door. A crowd leaving the theater just walked by the store. Everyone was caught up chatting about the movie and what to have for dinner. Mili's cries for help went unheard. After the crowd left, a little boy walked by. He heard the knocking and mentioned it to his dad. As the father set his phone aside and walked over, Mili's hands lost grip on the tray. She was just too frozen to fight anymore. She missed her only chance. The mall lights flickered off, one after another. Mili was totally stuck in the freezer. Her watch broke because of the cold. Without time, her heart felt even more adrift. To make matters worse, her nose began to bleed from the cold air. If things keep going like this, she won't be around much longer. Scared, she huddled in the corner. She was unsure of what to do. She wasn't sure how much longer she could hang on. Before long, her palms went cold, and frost began to creep up her arms. Mili pushed herself to be strong. She removed her earrings, grabbed a thin shirt from her bag, tore it in half, and wrapped the fabric around her hands and feet with tape. But that just wasn't enough. Her toes were cracking from the cold. She just curled up tighter. She didn't realize how long it had been. In a daze, she figured out that all the cold air was coming from the 2 fans in the freezer. She mustered her courage once more, pulled a box over, and ripped it into 2 square pieces of cardboard. She pulled herself up the ladder, her injured body making it tough. The cold wind stung her face like knives. She stood on tiptoe, trembling a bit as she pressed the cardboard over the fan, then carefully taped it down. One wrong move, and she might take a tumble. Right when she wrapped up the second fan, the first piece flew off. Mili crawled back to it, but her foot slipped. She dropped hard to the ground. Mili managed to dodge just in time. Sadly, her right foot got crushed and broken. This freezing place just made that injury feel even worse. Mili went for it with a bold choice. She carefully put her foot between 2 shelves. She carefully slid a piece of side. She took a deep breath and held it. She bit down hard, and her broken foot popped back into place. She faced the cold and the pain head-on. She wrapped her foot in cloth, placed cardboard on her ankle, and secured it tightly with tape. The broken ankle can at least handle a bit of weight now. Mili was on the hunt for some food to boost her strength. The fries that used to be soft are now as hard as rocks. She had to curl up against the wall, just waiting to see what fate would throw her way. Out of nowhere, Mili spotted a mouse close by. She had no fear. Instead, she picked up the box that was under the mouse's feet. There was a piece of chocolate inside. She ate it quickly. She could only fight for more chances of rescue by gaining energy. As Mili watched the mouse looking for food, she broke off a small piece and tossed it to the little guy. They were both facing the same harsh reality. The freezer temperature had now dropped to -16 degrees. If she didn't figure something out, she was definitely going to freeze to death here. Then Mili thought of the lighter in her bag. She started burning anything she could get her hands on for warmth, even her Canadian visa application papers. It showed she was ready to let go of her dreams just to get by. Sure enough, the temperature in the freezer started to go up. The mouse moved in closer, soaking up the warmth. But soon, the room was filled with thick smoke. Mili coughed violently, struggling with the fumes. She figured she could end up dying from the smoke before the cold got to her. She quickly grabbed a piece of cardboard and put out the flames. That's when she spotted a half-burned piece of paper. A drawing of a cozy fortress was on it. Out of nowhere, she came up with an idea. She dragged her injured body and used boxes and plastic frames to put together a small shelter. She put a cardboard sheet on top and even let the mouse in. Maybe if I hide there, things won't feel so scary. But the cold air just wouldn't stay out. Everything around her felt so ice cold. She didn't know how long she had been there. When Mili woke up again, she noticed her arm had slipped off the cardboard and was stuck tight to the floor. She didn't have a moment to think. The more she waited, the tougher it would get to remove. She gritted her teeth, yanked her arm up, and let out a scream of pain. The mouse was already frozen to death. After being still for so long, every little movement made her pain feel twice as bad. Her skin was cracking from the cold. She wasn't sure how much longer she could hang in there. Mili glanced up at the fans once more. She pulled a steel pipe over, nervously shoved it into the vent, and pushed down with all her might. She attempted to take off the cover. After so many attempts, she finally got the lid off. If she could just get the fan to stop spinning, the cold air would chill out a bit. She held onto the steel pipe tightly with both hands. This method clearly didn't work. At that point, the freezer was at -17 degrees. If Mili couldn't find another way, she'd freeze to death. She was the first to sit down. She wrapped her frostbitten arm in plastic wrap. So, she just wrapped her whole body in it. She held a piece of frozen meat in her left hand, staring intently at the relentless fan. In that moment, Mili seemed like a warrior who had just come to life. She tossed the frozen meat at the spinning blades. She missed, so she gave it another shot. After throwing many times, her eyes got sharper and more determined. At last, she mustered all her strength and threw the meat right at the fan. This time, her confidence helped her succeed. The cold wind still sliced through her, but a flicker of hope warmed her from within. She stuffed in more frozen meat to make sure the fan wouldn't spin again. So, there was just one fan left. If she could stop it too, maybe she still had a shot at living. But she was almost out of strength. She missed her throws and then fell weakly to the ground. By then, her skin was purple and cracked from the cold. Using her last bit of strength, she tapped on the wall, a bit unsteady. Out of nowhere, her hand brushed against a screw. Mili took out her hairpin, twisted the screw with curiosity, and popped off the cover. It ended up being an escape hatch, but she just didn't have the strength to crawl through anymore. She grabbed a tray and gave a couple of taps inside the opening. Just then, Mili's dad, who was nervously looking around, happened to stroll by. He heard the noise and quickly ran to open the fire hydrant door. He wouldn't overlook even the tiniest hint. It just seemed like a regular fire hydrant from the outside. He was just about to head out when Mili suddenly collapsed. The tray slipped from her hand and hit the floor with a loud clatter. The noise drew the dad back. Anxiety whispered that every second counted. Mili was sprawled on the cold floor, her eyes shut tight. And just then, her dad finally found her. Mili finally got rescued.